welcome back to another Sentry Equipment video. I'm Angelo D'Ambrosia.
And I'm Rob Romarino.
And today we're going to be talking about motivating your team. Rob, you do a lot of team motivating for us here at Sentry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say is the benefit to an employer to motivate their team?
I think that anytime you have a motivated team, you have better workers. As I'm kind of a data geek, so I always look at statistics, and I think motivated employees are 31% more productive than unmotivated employees. They're 41% more likely to show up to work. They're 21% less likely to take a sick day. So when you have somebody who's motivated versus somebody who's unmotivated, you just get a better working class. The best ability is availability and dependability, and those two things start with motivated people.
How does the work environment play into it?
Well, if you have a positive culture, you're going to have a positive work environment. Creating a good culture is really part and parcel to having motivated employees. I'm a big culture guy. I believe in culture. I think that the better you treat your employees and the more happier they are, the better they'll treat your customers, and the more happy your customers will be. So first and foremost, you have to improve the atmosphere of your store. Have you ever walked into a business, any type of business, and you just walk in and you just, you feel like a chill, like it's a negative chill? Like, that's not a great culture. Like, you can actually feel the tension in a store. So first thing is look at the atmosphere of your store. Look at the vibe. Is it upbeat? Is it energized? Do you need plants that bring life? Do you need artwork that kind of brings some color and vibrancy? Do you have seating areas for breaks? You'd be like, you take a break in the back where it's just a corner and you get kids just sitting there like this. I mean, that's not alive and energetic. Do you have music in your store? Is there snacks you can provide? There's a lot of little things you could do on a daily basis to just improve the overall atmosphere and help the culture of your business.
Kind of ties into what we give the customers advice on attacking the senses for their customers.
Yeah.
Also works for their team.
100%, yes, 100%.
As an owner or a manager, what are some things you could do to motivate your team?
I think one of the most important things, either owner or management, is recognizing hard work. When somebody does a good job, you have to let them know, whether it's private or in public, in person. Social media is a great thing. Shout outs are so important. These are kids, and they're young, and they want that positive reinforcement. And when we just expect them to do a good job and never commend them for it, but when they do a bad job, we're coming down on them, that affects the culture. It brings down the culture.
So you would say feedback is very important.
Yes, create and then reward not only individual achievements and accomplishments, but also team.
What else do you see, Rob?
I think as an owner, we want to be transparent. Relationships are built on trust, and transparency is one of the best ways to motivate. Be transparent in what you want to see from your employees. Be transparent in how the business is doing. Having your team have insight into how the business is performing, get your employees more invested in the business. And if they're more invested, they'll be more motivated. You don't have to give them your checking account balance, but just let them know. Look, hey, we did great last night. Hey, this is what we're doing. Average transactions. Our promotion really worked out well. Hey, you came up with this promotion and we sold X amount of this. Be transparent about your decisions, your methods, your vision, and that really can create a motivating environment. What's funny about this business is we hire a lot of kids in the ice cream and the dessert business and the retail business. Well, we have to treat them like adults, but remember that they're kids. And if we want to have motivated employees, that's a fine line to kind of navigate.
So how do you navigate that line of treating them like they're kids, but it's running a business?
I think the best when you have a young staff is you have to kind of be a mentor to them. They all have parents and they have relationships with their parents. A lot of these kids and your staff, it might be their first job, it might be their second job, it might be early on in their career and it's a stepping stone piece, but you can still be a mentor. If they leave your company and take something they've learned into their next role, you've done your job, right? And understand, they're scared, they're nervous. I train kids all the time And the first question I ask them is, how many of them is their first job? And I'd say 60 to 70% it's their first job. And I tell them, I'm like, all right, let's sit there, shake it out, shake out the nervousness, shake out the worries, right? And a lot of them probably think I'm a big dork, right? But it gets them loose. These kids are nervous, you know? I have young kids myself, and they're getting into the workforce, and they're scared. They grew up on screens, and now we're like, you've grown up on screens, now talk to human beings. And then when they can't talk to human beings, we're like, I don't understand why they can't talk to human beings. Just understand them. Understand it's going to take time, so be patient. I'll tell you a quick story that really kind of hit home on the expectations of the older generation who's hiring and the expectations of the younger generation who's doing the job. You know, cash is becoming less in this business, but a lot of people still pay cash. And one of my customers was just so fed up that these kids, they don't know cash, they don't know how to make change, they don't know quarters and dimes and nickels. He's like, how stupid can they be? And I'm like, they didn't grow up on cash. They grew up on cards and Apple Pay. They don't even know what cash is. And I asked the operator, the owner, I said, do me a favor, take out your cell phone. Yeah, I'll take out my cell phone. So go on Instagram, put an Instagram post for your social media. I don't know how to do that. I said, you not knowing how to do that is the exact same thing as your kid not knowing how to deal with cash. It's just different generations. If you told your staff to put an Instagram post on, they'd have it done in 10 seconds. You don't even know how to get Instagram on your phone. So we all have our deficiencies based on how we grew up and what we learned. As an owner, you have to understand that. Give them expectations, but don't be a helicopter boss. 83% of kids grow up in a helicopter parent environment where people are just watching over, micromanaging everything they do. Let them fail, let them make mistakes. Don't helicopter everything they do. The best thing as an owner is you teach somebody something, you let them make a mistake, and you see if they learn from the mistake. If they're making the same mistakes a week later, maybe they're not cut out for the job. But you gotta let these kids grow.
So you mentioned understanding that they are kids, that they have lives, that they have parents. So what would your opinion be on offering like flexible scheduling?
Well, I mean, you have to set clear goals as an owner. You know, you have to understand when you hire somebody, okay, what is your schedule requirements? I understand you're in sports, I understand you're in school, I understand maybe you're college, what is your schedule environment? And then if you're clear up front and they're clear to you, there shouldn't be any issues. Right? But sometimes you hire them and you want them to work 30 hours and they want to work 10, or vice versa. That's where you have to communicate, you have to set clear goals, okay? They have to be accountable and they have to be tangible. If you have a side work chart and they come in the morning and there's 10 things that need to get done, Angelo has to sign it, that you did it. This way, if it's not done, I can go to Angelo and say, you signed this. If it's not clear and it's not tangible, it doesn't exist. And you can't hold them accountable. Same thing with the scheduling, same thing with the hiring. I mean, flexibility is fine, but when you're first starting the job, we have to understand what flexibility means to you, because it may mean something different to me.
So another thing you touched on already was team building. Mm-hmm. What are some good practices for some of our customers to do for team building?
Well, I think number one, it starts with having team building events. You know, whether it's an end-of-year party, a mid-season party, and you don't have to rent out a hall. I mean, you don't have to take them to a Phillies game. You can, but what you can do is little things. You know, have a pizza on Friday nights. Maybe one night every month, you know, the kids come in, even if you're not working, and it's a game night. You know, little powwows before the shift, get together and have a little motivational thing. Again, little stuff that keeps them invested, keeps them motivated. I also think that feedback. As owners, we don't have all the answers. You know, we try to figure out all these things. I wonder what our staff wants. And you're online, you're searching, what does my staff want? Meanwhile, the staff's in the other room saying, I know what I want. Just ask me. I'm right here. You know what I mean? So the easiest thing to do is just go to your staff. Hey, what do you guys want to see? What can I do to help make this a more positive team culture and environment? Demonstrate.
So as an owner, you would say you would want the feedback from your team, not go search it, just go ask them.
Oh, 100%.
A good team building thing for me would be like an old school dunk tank for my boss. I think that would be very fun.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen. If you're the one getting dunked, I'm in. But if I'm the one getting dunked, I'm out. The best thing you could do is demonstrate that you care, so your staff feels supported and appreciated. And there's no way to better demonstrate that you care than talking to someone and communicating with them and saying, what do you want to see? What can I do? How can I help? And that, when you start that conversation, that leads into everything else. That leads into the motivation. It leads into you being a mentor. It leads you into being transparent. So it starts with communication. That's really important. And then the other thing is offer incentives. You know, like, hey, cash, a gift card, an outing. Sometimes you need to get your staff outside work so everybody sees each other as humans rather than just cogs in your business's wheel.
Co-workers.
Yeah. You don't have to break the bank. It's really the thought that matters. It's a little thing.
Which ties into then keeping a good culture and creating the culture.
Yeah.
Another question that's close to my heart is, how do you pay? How do you compensate? Like, how does that have to do with this?
Well, most of the businesses that we deal with are somewhat minimum wage. You know, maybe a little bit more for shift leaders or managers. Look, we can't pay six-figure salaries for scooping ice cream, but we can do the other little things. You know, we may be a minimum wage company, so we're competing with every other minimum wage business. So how do we separate ourselves? Most people, high percentage of people, don't leave a job because of their pay. They leave a job because they don't feel motivated, they don't feel listened to, they don't feel understood. If you do all those other things, the pay does not matter. And the nice part about our business is, if you're taking tips, these kids clean up in tips. Your staff will clean up in tips. So your customers are helping your compensation and your labor force. So you can afford to, you know, pay the minimum wage, you know. You can't pay less than that. There are some tip wages out there, but you know, depending on your market, I think minimum wage is fair. But if you do all the other things, you won't have a problem with compensation. You really won't. That's where it starts. You know, wrapping it all in a bow. The pay is the least thing you should be worrying about. And if pay does become an issue, trust me, you're not doing the other things we just discussed. So, you know, in the end, you got to create a positive culture and work environment. You got to improve your atmosphere. You recognize hard work, be transparent, set clear goals, offer incentives, encourage your team building. Treat them like adults, but remember they're kids. You know, you pay what you need to pay, but do these other things and compensation won't be an issue. And remember, most importantly, as an owner, your reputation matters, both online and in real life. So get involved in the community, be a leader, be a mentor, and you will not only attract talent, but you'll be able to keep talent too. And all that just helps your business.
If you like the content of this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a like.
And if there's anything else you'd like to see, please use the comment section. We're always looking for new content to try to help our customers. So nothing better than your direct feedback, and then we can create some content for you, put it on YouTube so you can like and subscribe even more. Thanks so much.